adapt, evolve, execute, lead the change. Global Business Week Virtual Edition, hosted by BIBA, the Association for Global Business and its strategic partners. This year, join us for our virtual week of activities. We've adapted our week of activities to take advantage of the times and the technology. Global Business Week highlights BIBA's long-standing contribution to the development of Barbados' economy. Global Business Week highlights BIBA's work in the community through charitable donations, public engagement, youth career development, and health and wellness. This year, BIBA is proud to host its virtual 5K. Download the event app, join the club, and log your activity, whether walking, running, riding, or hiking. BIBA represents companies in and affiliated with the global business sector in Barbados. We work in partnership with the government towards the development of the sector and in the interests of Barbadians and the members of the association. Most people are familiar with the terms international or offshore business, but global business is more than that. BIBA focuses on the impact of global business on a local level. Global business contributes to the local economy in several ways, from salaries and taxes, home and car rentals, to groceries, vacation rentals, business conferences, and much more. The global business sector engages in and influences the development of many onshore activities through service delivery, infrastructural upgrades in standard of living and recreation, transportation, and telecommunications, setting Barbados up to take advantage of the economic spin-off provided by multi-billion-dollar investment flows. Join BIBA as we celebrate Global Business Week Virtual Edition. Adapt, evolve, execute, lead the change. Visit gbw.biba.bb for more information about BIBA and Global Business Week.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our free public discussion forum that kicks off one of the major activities of Global Business Week. This evening, we are very pleased to be engaging with the very important topic of Barbados Online, Are We Ready? My name is Carmel Haynes, and I'm the Executive Director of BIBA and your MC for this evening. I would now like to invite our President, Mr. Derek Cummins, to deliver his opening remarks. Derek?
Thank you, Carmel. Good evening to everybody. I will want to say, first of all, welcome to our specially invited guests. Welcome to BIBA directors and partners who are so strategic in helping us put on this entire week. Welcome to our moderator and panelists with whom we are so happy to share this evening with. Welcome to our sponsors, all viewers and listeners on all mediums. Pleasure to have you share tonight with us. Now, where else but on the BIBA platform will you publicly see such a gathering of this as this? Leading management of 5 critical government agencies, whom I am sure are quite happy to continue their committed service quietly behind the scenes. Yet, we are proud and pleased with the relationships that we have managed to hone and cultivate over the years that allow us to welcome this cadre of dedicated professionals to our discussion tonight. This, after all, is one of the critical roles of BIBA, the Association for Global Business, to bridge any gaps in expectation and in reality between demanding practitioners serving a demanding business world and government professionals, their policies, practices, requirements under the regulations, legislation, current and pending, directives, and mandates. BIBA, for the most part, has enjoyed a seat at the table as government from time to time seek to roll out new legislation, products and services, and other initiatives to improve the platform upon which we do business in Barbados. And we have proven over the years that we are indeed a fruitful partner. And with that, then, we look forward to a continued welcome to the table. Today, we exist in a 24/7 world where the reasonable expectation is to have everything at our fingertips, everything just a few clicks away. Social, professional, play, travel, banking, dining, even love. Unfortunately, tonight we cannot help with the latter, but we are here to discuss what this means to Barbados from a governmental perspective. Barbados Online, are we ready? Are we on time? Are we late? Are we too late? Will we be going far enough, aggressively enough? Do we have the systems, financing, and the talent to accomplish all that we must? And indeed we must. Many questions I am sure will be asked. Many questions I am certain will be answered. As we continue along our path of digital transformation, I look forward to engaging tonight on the technical, the process, and cultural changes that are afoot. Thank you very much all for being part of tonight's session. Listen, engage, learn. I would now like to invite our sponsors, and of course we could not be here without them, invite Greg McConney, who is the President and CEO of Brookfield Barbados Group, who is the main sponsor and have been for many years of tonight's session. Over to you, Greg.
Thank you very much, Derek, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Brookfield is pleased to once again support BIBA and Global Business Week through sponsorship of this event. Brookfield Asset Management is a Toronto headquartered leading global alternative asset manager trading on the New York and Toronto stock exchanges. We have over $625 billion in assets under management across the real estate, renewable power, infrastructure, private equity, and credit sectors in more than 30 countries. We manage a range of public and private investment products and services for institutional and retail clients. One good thing that the COVID-19 pandemic had fostered is an acceleration of the pace with which our online platforms to conduct business have been rolled out and gained acceptance. While some initiatives would clearly have been initiated pre-COVID, the rate of adoption has certainly been hastened by the circumstances faced. As an example, 2 years ago, only a limited number of counterparties would freely make available their electronic banking details for settlement purposes. And today, check payment has been practically eliminated in local settlement processes within our business. Another example is the use of the online application process for the police certificate of character, where tremendous progress has been made, saving hours of time. In the past, I've had to spend several hours to complete the in-person application process, then wait a couple of weeks before having to physically collect the certificate. Just last week, I had the pleasure of applying online for the certificate at 1:30 p.m. and after paying the application fee, also online, receiving the certificate by email at 2:16 p.m. What a difference. So I'm very much looking forward to the discussion to come and learning about further opportunities to improve business efficiencies using online platforms, and thank the panelists and moderator for taking the time to share with us this evening. Thank you.
And thank you to Greg for joining us this evening and each year. We are really grateful for Brookfield's support. I would now like to invite our moderator, Ms. Connie Smith, who is the Managing Director of Tricor Caribbean and a Director of BIBA, to introduce the panel.
Thank you very much, Carmel, and good evening to everyone. As Carmel has mentioned, we have a great lineup on the panelists who have agreed to be with us this evening. And I'll if you would permit me, I'll just have a few minutes to introduce them very briefly. First of all, we have Ms. Louisa Lewis Ward, who is the Revenue Commissioner of the Barbados Revenue Authority. Prior to joining the authority, Louisa was a tax partner and head of tax with KPMG, and prior to that, a tax partner with PwC. Her professional history includes membership of the Tax Committee of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Barbados, ICAB, as a trustee of the Barbados International Business Association BIBA charity, membership of the BIBA Task Force, and past council membership for the Barbados Chamber of Commerce and Industry, BCCI. Louisa holds a degree in finance and accounting from the University of Salford, UK, and a master's in accounting with emphasis on taxation from the University of Florida in Gainesville, USA. She is a fellow of the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, FCCA, and a practicing member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants in both Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean. Welcome, Louisa. Next up, we have Margaret Innes. Ms. Innes has been working with the Barbados Immigration Department for 42 years. She is currently the Deputy Chief Immigration Officer with responsibility for the 12-month Barbados Welcome Stamp. Margaret has an Executive Certificate Program in International Development from the Institute for the Study of International Development, McGill University. She holds a Master's in International Trade Policy from the UWI. She also has a Bachelor's in Sociology and Psychology from the UWI as well, and a Management of Human Resources from BIMAP. Margaret has a number of accomplishments, including the operationalization of the Barbados Welcome Stamp, and she has a number of published works, including an inspirational book called Fight Back, The CARICOM Single Market and Gender Equality and Parenting Styles and its Influence on Academic Achievement. Margaret chooses to challenge all leaders to have a better understanding of themselves, who they are in the workplace, and how they add value to social relationships. Welcome, Margaret. Next, we have Kester Guy. Kester is the Chief Executive Officer of the Financial Services Commission in Barbados. He joined the FSC in March 2016 as the Deputy CEO, Supervision and Regulation, and had responsibility for overseeing regulatory issues in insurance, securities, credit unions, and occupational pensions. Kester has an extensive background in economics and finance and served as a central bank economist for over 10 years. His professional development also included being CEO of Barbados Deposit Insurance Corporation, senior economist at the Central Bank of Barbados, and economist at the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago. In addition to his Bachelor of Science in Economics and Master's with honors, and his Master of Science in Economics from the University of the West Indies, Kester has specialized in training in macroeconomic diagnostics, financial planning and programming, macroprudential policy framework, and has made presentations in regional and international forums on matters related to economics and finance. Welcome, Kester. Next up, we have Casey. Casey Boyce is an attorney at law, currently assigned to the Office of Corporate Affairs and Intellectual Property Office as its acting Deputy Registrar of Companies. She views this experience as invaluable and enriching since joining the office in December 2020. Casey has also worked as a judicial assistant, Crown Counsel, legal officer with the National Insurance Scheme and the Barbados Revenue Authority, as well as in private practice specializing in civil litigation. She is also interned in legal departments in various capacities in the areas of legal research and corporate governance. Casey believes that these work experiences have provided her with invaluable insight into the management and conduct of various projects and tasks, allowed her to work under various conditions and constraints, and fostered a keen interest in planning and development. Casey is a certified court-annexed mediator and holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in history with a minor in linguistics from the University of the West Indies and a Bachelor of Laws degree from the University of the West Indies. Welcome, Casey. Last but not least, we have Robert Foltz. Robert Folks is a public servant who is currently serving as the acting director in the International Business Unit of the Ministry of International Business and Industry, where he has served for over 20 years. Robert is a passionate person who feels privileged to be a public servant. He has, among other things, a keen interest in information technology, which dates back to the early days of the government's efforts to implement an enabling environment for private sector investment. As director, he is a member of the team that oversees the ministry's IT projects, and particularly the Bliss solution, which will enhance, among other things, the process of applications and overall delivery of services to our public. Welcome, Robert. I think you would all agree with me that these bios are incredibly impressive, and we have a wealth of experience with us this evening. So let me welcome the panelists all and invite you to turn your cameras on for the beginning of this afternoon's discussion. If I may, what an interesting and provocative subject that has been given for us to discuss this evening. Please allow me to convey my gratitude in advance to each of you for agreeing to be part of our panel this evening. I'm really looking forward to our engagement. Let me start first by reading an extract from the World Economic Forum's introduction of their report on the countries that ranked highest for digital competitiveness for the last 3 years, 2018, 2020. And I quote, "The COVID-19 pandemic has shown that digital technologies determine not only whether or not countries thrive, but also how well they're able to navigate trying times. Applied effectively, digital technologies not only enable education and work to move from homes and offices to the home, but they also provide increasingly efficient ways to organize processes in companies and governments. New technologies such as 3D printing, augmented and virtual reality, sensors, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and robotics also have the potential to disrupt nearly every industry. The competitiveness of countries in these technologies will be determined on how prosperous they will be in the decades ahead." End quote. My first question is around this. Digital technologies have been transforming the global economy. We see it every day. However, many countries have yet to experience the full development benefits of digital technologies and transformation, such as inclusive and sustainable growth, improved governance, and responsive service delivery. Given the magnitude of change and competitive advantage that digital technologies can bring about, the risks of slow or poor adoption of these innovations can be catastrophic for industries, governments, individuals, and countries. You may have heard Prime Minister Mia Motley speak numerous times regarding the imperative to digitally transform Barbados. We've been speaking about this for decades, but in the spirit of not wasting a good crisis, the pandemic provided the impetus for us to finally accelerate and implement what we have been resting on our laurels about. My first question to you, the panel this afternoon, is what have you been doing in the last 12 months or so in your own agencies to embrace digital transformation? Let me give each of you about 5 to 7 minutes to bring us up to speed on your respective agencies. And I'm going to apologize in advance if I have to cut anybody off, but I do want to keep it to in this first instance, to 5 or 7 minutes so that we can get to the range of questions that we may otherwise have. So in inviting you to give us that update, let's go perhaps in the order in which I introduced you this evening. Louisa, would you like to start us off?
Sure, Connie, thank you. And thanks to BIBA for having me and a grand opening to Global Business Week. Barbados Online, Are We Ready? As I thought about the title, I renamed it in my own mind, The Pressure of Efficiency. Because that's really what it is. Barbados has for a long time, I think, needed to upgrade its infrastructure in order to meet the challenges of the 21st century. We've heard time and time again about how our services, how efficient or inefficient our services can be. And that includes the services provided by the Revenue Authority. The authority itself is 7 years old now, yet lucky 7. It was established in 2014 with its main activities related to the administration of legislation and its responsibility for the enforcement and collection of all forms of duties, taxes, penalties, interest, and fees. The authority collects, and I'll just give you a little picture, collects income on profits, personal tax, corporation tax, withholding tax, taxes on goods and services, VAT, highway revenue, excise duties, bank and asset taxes, property taxes in the form of land tax. We also collect rent registrations, the solid waste tax when in effect, the national responsibility levy, the room rate levy, the product development levy, insurance premium taxes, and gaming and license fees. Therefore, when you speak to online readiness, I think you have to be aware of the number of platforms that are required to be supported in the collection of these various taxes. In addition, we look as a competent authority, we exchange information with our treaty partners quite regularly on the CRS and the FATCA initiatives and on the automatic exchange of information. So not a small feat when you look at it in its grandeur. The implementation in particular of TAMIS in 2017, I think, has been the starting point for the consolidation of all these initiatives. TAMIS has been used to bring together corporate tax, personal tax, betting and gaming fees, VAT, and the levies. The exchange of information happens by way of another platform that you don't see very often, but it works quite well. It's currently used to handle also the exchange of information upon requests. We've heard, I think, your questions and inquiries around the TAMIS system. We've logged them and we continue to fix them along with the TAMIS team. To facilitate the online process, we've just established as well a full contact center where taxpayers can call for information on various taxes. The information is logged, and from an internal perspective, the monitoring system is strong. From an external perspective, the questions that may be asked may still lead to some frustration, I think, as they may relate to refunds, the timing of receiving those refunds, and the application of payments within the system. In the upcoming months, we will be focusing on expanding that contact center into a full customer service center to meet taxpayers' needs. In some areas, not as much an online initiative, as we recognize that there are some taxpayers within the Barbados community who still want to conduct their business on the phone and online. From an online perspective, we continue with Easy Pay, Pace Barbados, SurePay, and with the commercial banks. And we'll soon be rolling out an e-commerce platform, which will allow you to use any card in any location to settle all of your obligations on time. So I think, what does the future perhaps look like from an online perspective? Countries like Estonia moved completely online in 1997. So we know what the future looks like. The future looks fairly paperless. The future should be a new system that is easy for taxpayers to use. And on the back end, it has to provide the information which allows robust audit and monitoring. We at the Revenue Authority will continue to invest in technology, and perhaps you'll see some of that quite soon with a new land tax system, which doesn't require you to go to your mailbox to look for your bill every year. We'll also look at some data warehousing, business intelligence, because these have become areas of focus for us. And we want to make the process as robust as possible. And we do that in conjunction with many of our strategic partners as we look to build a full view of the taxpayer. A risk compliance framework will be key, and it will allow us to remove the inconvenience of you being selected for audit multiple times, of being selected for audits where the probability of collections is very low, of being selected for audits even when your compliance history is very good. And that is the future to which we should look. I think the authority is on a journey to improve voluntary compliance and to improve our service delivery. The goals that we have will fulfill our core administrative functions and simultaneously focus on the support in the areas of core operation so that we become effectively and efficiently executors of our tasks. That's my opening thought.
Great, and thank you for that. You were good time. Thank you so much, Louisa. Maybe I can then ask Margaret Ennis. Margaret, can you give us an idea of what has been going on in the Immigration Department? I'm told, and from my experience, you have been incredibly busy. So share some of those things with us, please.
Thanks, listeners, viewers. Yes, the Immigration Department, we've been forced to be busy. We now live in a world where COVID has forced us really to live remotely, work remotely. So going out, doing things now is more doing it online, ease of doing business. We fully understand that Barbados is a middle income, small island state, and we need to be competitive if we are going to overcome quickly. And therefore we need to have the strategies, and online processing is one way really in which to do business with ease. The Immigration Department plays a major role in trade development, migration, and also national security. Over the years, from as far back as say 1996, 1997, that's when we first started to look at computerizing our records, way back when. We've come a long way. Back then, we only looked at capturing information for persons leaving and entering. Since then, we've introduced equipment like scanners, the integration of machine-readable passports. Now we're at a place where we want to fully integrate our systems, where you can apply for your passport online, not just an appointment system, but apply for your passport online and have that application processed fully, where your passport is returned to you. You don't have to visit the office. We are not quite there, but we are very close. Before the year ends, we envision, it is our mission, our dream, we're working hard on that to make that a possibility, because the Immigration Department is one of 7 departments chosen by government to move from a paper-based to a digital platform. And as such, we've been doing a lot of training and creating that electronic framework where we can provide those services. We're unique in that we not only service the local, but we service regional and the international market. And we fully understand that we play that role in trade and development. One of the processes, one of the applications that we have basically, and we do it within 5 days, that's the Barbados Welcome Stamp. It was an ingenious move. We process applications. Thus far, we've processed close to 2,000 applications representing over 5,000 persons. And we do this in a 5-day period. We've attracted about 110 nationalities to this point, to the point where there was a demand for renewal, and the government saw it fit to renew the 12-month welcome stamp. That stamp from beginning to end is an online process where you sit in the comfort of your home, day or night, mid-morning, you submit your application, and within 5 days, you are given a response. Once you pay, you receive your visa, an electronic visa. And it could either be for you, the individual, or for your entire family to come to Barbados and work remotely from Barbados. I'm going to end by saying that, are we ready? Let's ask ourselves that question again. From what you've heard, is the Barbados Immigration Department ready? Are we on our way? I'm going to leave you to make that assessment based on your experience or what you've heard about us. But I certainly hope that what I have said really does whet your appetite for what we have in store in the next coming months.
Margaret, thank you for those introductory comments. And that is very impressive work to be able to have processed over 2,500 applications, which is more than 5,000 individuals and over 110 nationalities represented to make Barbados their home and make sure that they had a seamless experience. It's very impressive. And I hope to be one of the first people to renew my passport remotely or electronically come the end of the year. I'm looking forward to that. Kester, why don't you take us through what the Financial Services Commission has been doing over the last couple of years in the area of digital transformation?
Hi, Connie, and thanks for the question to my panelists. Hi, and good evening to all our participants. Well, Connie, maybe I should start from the most recent, given the COVID development. As everyone knows, you can engage with the FSC seamlessly, only by choice. If you so desire, you will come to our office, but from applications to submission of specific returns or requirements to the FSC, you can do all of that remotely. But while this process started for many years, perhaps since the inception of the FSC, we have come across ebbs and flows, times where there was significant movement in our technological advance, and then there are times where there was some slowing down and trying to retrofit or correct where there were deficiencies. While today I've said we do go from licensing to all submissions online, we have been working on an e-filing platform, which would allow full engagement, end-to-end process engagement with the FSC for all our stakeholders. We had started back in 2019, what we will call probably a soft launch of this framework, and came across some obstacles in terms of functionality for the service, for the market users. And we came across some other changes in methodologies that required us to do further tweaking and so on in the background. We have since taken a pause, relooked, retooled, reshaped ourselves, and have been engaging our stakeholders again on the utilization of this e-filing platform. So if you were to apply for a license today at the FSC, we will direct you to go on our e-filing platform and submit all your documents, all your relevant pieces of information for our consideration. That process, e-filing process, would allow us to map every step of the way to know exactly who is dealing with what aspect of it, and eventually go right up to our policy or decision makers who can then return a decision in that framework. We have not fully completed the end-to-end process, but we are working on various phases of it as we try to fly the plane, as one of my colleagues will say, fly the plane and build it at the same time. Now, without a doubt, technology is fast-paced and it's moving swiftly. Are we fully ready? As the others say, because of its ongoing development, we are certainly making strides to move us from point A to point B. And certainly when we get to point B, there's also new enhancements and new tools to be used. Part of our rollout and intention is to do all our diagnostics electronically using the same technology, and to be able to report back to you, all our stakeholders, where they fit, whether it's peer reviews, whether it's certain deficiencies highlighted from their individual submissions, and just have our entire dialogue and framework utilizing a regulatory online or digital platform. Yeah, subtech, regtech, the market is filled with them, and we are doing our part to onboard the appropriate or the right sized technology to ensure that our service deliveries are timely, engaging, and are functional, intuitive for the persons and all our users. Let me stop there for now and allow for the smooth dialogue going forward.
Great, thank you for that, Kester. The analogy of flying the plane while you're building it is an interesting one, and one, of course, that we will be familiar with when we talk in the context of being agile and flexible. So thank you for that information. Casey, can I ask you or invite you to tell us a bit about what's going on or what has been going on in your agency of KIPO over the last while, please?
Hi, good evening, Connie, and to everybody on the panel and those listening. As you will know, our office has the primary responsibility for keeping and maintaining a wide variety of business and commercial records, which are vital for the conduct of business in and from Barbados. So for the last several months, well, actually beginning in April, of this year, we've been working with an international IT developer to transform our systems into a completely digital platform. So what that means essentially is that from the filing of your application to the receipt of your certificate, all of that will be managed online. You will file your application through our digital portal, and an email notification will be sent to you along the way. And then at the end of it, your certificate will be emailed to you, or you can log in to your status and have that certificate printed right there and then. You don't need to come into our offices anymore. We've had to look at it in a phased approach. So for phase 1, we'll only be doing incorporation of businesses that will include domestic companies, as well as external companies, nonprofits, etc., and the registration of business names. So those processes will be online, and hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we will launch phase 1. Phase 2 is scheduled probably for the early part of next year, but development has already begun on that. And that will see all the other post-incorporation filings being incorporated into the system. So filing of amendments, continuations, anything that you would do post-incorporation, that will be incorporated into phase 2, as well as our mobile app that is incorporated into phase 2. Additionally, all your filing of annual returns, notices, those will be instantaneous. So that will be incorporated into phase 2 as well. So that's what KIPO has been doing for the last several months. As I said, hopefully we'll be up and going in short order. So we're looking forward to this transformation and hopefully doing business more efficiently and making sure that we service our customers as best as we can.
Thank you, Casey. I'm going to be hopefully asking you some more questions around that instantaneously that you mentioned for some of your phase 2 transactions. I would like to hear a bit more about that. But before I ask other questions around your presentations, let me invite Robert to make some comments as to what the Ministry of International Business has been up to for the last while. Robert, please. Robert, you're still on mute.
Yes, good night, everyone. Yes, thank you, BIBA, for the invitation to be a part of the panel, and to my fellow panelists, good evening, and those joining us by Zoom. Yes, good night. Yes, I am pretty much excited to hear what is going on in the other areas. And certainly, as Casey would have mentioned about what is happening in KIPO as a department of the ministry. Now, for us in the international business unit, as persons would know, is that we are responsible for the corporate and trust service providers and who in turn introduce the investors or whatever to our ministry. And so in terms of applications and whatnot. So we are, if one remembers that we had to introduce the economic substance system, you know, where we would have taken the initiative to put that in place because of developments internationally, and where we had to ensure that we had something to monitor the substance. And with that now, the ministry is pretty excited in terms of we're introducing or building on that same system to have a licensing system where the applications are submitted and you go through the process of, you know, doing these things online, and you know, so, and we'll be able to do the data, you know, gather the data and be able to serve our publics in a better way, and we are certainly anticipating that we can, you know, cut down processing times and all such like, and we can say that with the advent of COVID, you know, there was that realization that there are things that possibly might not have been able to be done before, or things that needed to be, you know, technologies that needed to be brought on board. And with that, and I can say the support of our leaders, you know, our minister, you know, the Honorable Ron Toppin and our PS, June Chandler, and even Kevin, the director, you know, that they have a particular passion in terms of seeing us move forward. And even before that, we have the full deployment of the, you know, the office software. And what we saw coming out of it is the persons being in the processing, even in terms of being innovative, in terms of how they use the technologies in order to deliver the service to the clients, even although we have not reached that point where we have that full automation. But we can say that things are pretty much on the road, and we're expecting that at least in early 2022 to have a system in place, you know, barring any other delays. But there's a lot of work being done behind the scenes, and we are certain that there will be that great improvement. And for me personally, you know, I'm excited because I have come through the years seeing certain things happen, and now I can say that we are, you know, I'm excited to think, you know, that these things will happen, you know, because we have the platform already. We would have learned from the experiences, and now we're just going riding hard, looking forward, and bearing in mind also that, you know, like sometimes persons might expect expect things to happen quickly, but I'm still thinking that, you know, that we are at a really critical point, because a lot of the issues, you know, we had the restructuring of the international business sector, you know, only this year we have done away with the IBCs and those things. So now, in terms of having a system, the system would take into consideration all those things, and I strongly believe, you know, that we will be able to do so much more, you know, in terms by utilizing the technologies. So just a few words. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Robert. And having been on the receiving end of a virtual on-site inspection as a licensed corporate and trust service provider, I can confirm that that process was seamless for us. We populated the data room, and it went very well. So I can attest that that things are moving in that positive direction. You brought up something just now in your comments near the end there, and I wanted to pick up on that dangling thread, if I may. And it is as it relates to expectations. So you've all mentioned really bold agendas and bold initiatives that we're all excited to embrace. And I appreciate that from what you have said and from what we have experienced, that a lot has happened. But as human beings, unless we are keeping track of a list or for some specific measurement purpose, we often tend not to appreciate the fullness of what is actually happening. Now, off the top of my head, very quickly, I can remember in the last year, 18 months, I've been able to view and pay my land tax online. I've been able to renew my driver's license online, although I did have to go and collect it in the end. I can pay every tradesman or service provider who conducts business at my home. I can pay them online, but of course, only vaccinated, fully vaccinated individuals need to apply for any of those jobs at my home. I can also apply for and receive the police certificate of character online. Greg mentioned that just now, and he was incredibly pleased with his less than 45 minutes, it sounded like, from applying to actually being able to print his police certificate of character, or at least access it. It may have been a barcode entry. I know that in my own organization, we've been able to file documentation to effect changes in corporate records with KIPO and pay for them online. And of course, we can file our personal and corporate tax returns online. And we've heard a lot recently about the digital Trident ID card that's about to be launched. But as human beings, we want everything now. And we have a very low tolerance when things don't exactly go how we want and how we see other more developed countries advancing. My question to you in the panel is, how are we managing our expectations or people's expectations in this transformative initiative? Is it, what are you doing to keep us all engaged and to keep us aware and to manage our expectations?
I think certainly from the standpoint of the Revenue Authority, it has been that we need to engage more with the public. We need the public to understand the why of what we're doing. We need to, the public has to understand the goal at the end of the day, be it one of meeting a peer review requirement of the OECD, one of meeting a European Union requirement, or one of meeting our own internal goals and targets even, and those that are set by the government of Barbados as a whole. So I think it is a matter of dialogue. I saw someone post in the chat, you've seen letters come to your homes on companies that you thought had died a natural death. And I saw there's a question there on why not just let that company go? What that exercise has been for the Revenue Authority. We did a comparison between the companies that were registered with ourselves and the corporate registry. The disparity there is 29,000 companies are not registered with the Revenue Authority. So whether it is tax losses from that differential, or it is that we just need to clean up our agenda and clean up our lives, really, is the question. And so I think it is a matter of dialogue and people understanding why and how we are going to go about doing the transformational things that we're doing.
Thank you for that. I heard a strong communication and engagement there. Margaret, I see that you had your hand up as well.
Yes, I want to piggyback on that and say, Are We Ready really is about the readiness and the willingness to deepen our partnerships. And in deepening our partnerships, we need to have a conversation. We need to collaborate more. We need to know what's in it for me. What can I get out of this? The world, COVID-19 basically has crippled the entire world and brought us all to a level playing field in terms of delivery of services and goods. And this is a season where we have to ask ourselves, how can I share with you? How can I hold hands with you? For a long time, we've held this thing called sovereignty, where my organization, my mission, my goal is so sovereign that I don't want to share with you. But now we are at the pinnacle of rebuilding, rebranding Barbados, that it must be fully understood that if we don't hold hands, none of us will go anywhere. So I see it as sharing a common vision. I call it Team Barbados, where we have one, it's a common vision for Barbados in itself. And we all play our part and we share with each other, whether it be from the community level, whether it be in the work environment. But let me become friends with you. Let me know more about you. Let me into your space as I let you into mine. And then we become more comfortable with each other. We share our information and we are readily accessible. That's the thing, being accessible. Sometimes you can call a government agency for hours and get no one. You get no one, and it builds a level of frustration. And I think that this is the season where we can use technology really to share our information, become friendly, and deliver one service as Team Barbados.
Sign me up for that one. And if I can, again, you're speaking some things that that I really wanted to get us into a discussion on. I've noticed as well that there are a couple of questions in the Q&A. I'm not ignoring them. I will come back to them. I see that there's one question with a sort of a subsection, so we'll come back to those. And let me encourage other people who are viewing this evening to feel free to put your questions in the Q&A. And we will come back, circle back to some of those in a little while. In the meantime, if I can pick up on Margaret's Team Barbados initiative, of course, because digital transformation is not a technological fix. It's not a blueprint plan or a one-off event or a one-size-fits-all strategy. Where I see it, it is more of a social learning process, and it's sustained over time, involving diverse stakeholders. And I think that its ultimate objective is to harness the global digital revolution to meet a country's specific socioeconomic priorities. The process is a marathon and not a sprint, and it's driven by a vision, by a leadership, by innovation, by learning, but importantly, by partnerships among government, business, and the civil society. So I want to know more about that stakeholder engagement and collaboration, and more about Team Barbados. I think many of us who sit on the receiving end of policy and legislation or improvements, we always see that, or we always have comments on how it affects us without necessarily being in on the ground floor. And I appreciate that not everybody can be in on the ground floor, but also appreciate that no one solution is going to fit everyone. So we have been having lots of town halls and various other things before, more recently. So take us through, if you could, from in your own agencies, what has been your Team Barbados approach? We heard a little bit about Margaret's just now, but share with me from your agencies, your Team Barbados approach. Can we expect more stakeholder engagement? Is there going to be opportunities perhaps through portals for people to provide feedback?
I'm seeing Robert's hand, so I wasn't sure if we should just respond or wait until you call somebody to respond.
Sorry, I see Robert's hand is up. So Robert, you can go first, and then I'll circle back to you, Kester, if I may.
Yes, as you say, with the collaboration, the very nature of the global business aspect, over the years, we had spent and invested time in bringing persons together, or consulting with different agencies. I mean, when you consider what we had to do in 2018, with the restructuring, you could not have done that just like that. That took a lot of the collaboration. And I found that over the years, the more you engage, the more that people have an appreciation for the issues that we face as a unit or ministry, and that we have a better understanding of the sector. And I can say that we have grown, closer over the years. And so that even when we have the policy, we have, different teams invited and being a part of the policy making where issues are concerned, and so that even in our engagement with external, with the the OECD and whatever, that we know that BIBA is a partner, and others, other ministries and those. So we have a culture of really seeking to engage, and we know that we cannot do it alone. We understand that we need the help from others, to input into the discussions, because whatever we do will have an impact on a wide cross section of the country.
Great, thank you very much. Kester, you wanted to make an intervention?
Yes, by all means, thanks, Connie. For all of us here on the panel, and we represent various, we represent the same government, same entity, but we may have our idiosyncratic or our unique space for which we are the experts in that area. I think in a large measure, we've all received the policy direction as issued by our leaders. And we will go away and think about what is my role to play in the delivery of this service. We are service, we deliver services to our stakeholders, to our clients, both internally and externally. Certainly at the FSC, we've had strong partnerships with not only government agencies, but with entities like BIBA, your good self, for which we've had standard, regular, let's call them quarterly meetings, and we will have a similar dialogue for the various sectors for which we have a supervisory purview. And while we don't speak only about technology in those areas, we have come across, just as Robert and Louise and Margaret alluded to, the dialogue and the importance of the dialogue, firstly to get the buy-in, firstly to get persons to understand, so that the very things that we're trying to roll out, the very efficiencies that you're trying to gain, that they're aware of and can provide feedback as to how we can better deliver our services, what works, what doesn't work. Because at the end of the day, we want to be able to deliver high quality services in a timely manner to all our stakeholders. Is there room for improvement, Connie? There's always room for improvement. There's always room for further engagement, further tightening, as Margaret said, learning from each other as we build our specific tools to administer responsibilities. But we can learn from each other and learn from you, our stakeholders, because you are also building your digital footprint. Yeah, thank you.
Indeed, I mean, Kester, I can't think of a letter that I've written on BIBA's behalf to any of the agencies that we interact with. And my last sentence is always, we're looking forward to the opportunity of being able to engage, to be able to share each other's perspective so that we can come up with a solution that works for Barbados. Casey, I know that your hand is up. And while you are making your intervention, can I ask you, please, there's a question in the Q&A section. I'll read it for you, so maybe you can incorporate your response, this answer in your response. While the appointment system at KIPO is a start until phase 1 and 2 are rolled out, can something be done to capture more information when booking the appointment so that time is not wasted when you arrive at KIPO? For example, it would be good if users can indicate which companies they are coming to deal with so that the files can be pulled in time for the appointment rather than having to wait for them when you arrive. Now, I am aware that there was recently a notice issued by the Acting Registrar of Corporate Affairs, Demetria Rochester, in this regard. So maybe you can share some of the information as to what you are doing and to help with that friction.
Okay, I'll start from the end and go up to what I wanted to say. Because of COVID-19 restrictions to the building, we've had to implement an appointment system only. It's not it's by an application that is not owned by Kaipo. It's actually just facilitated the process of booking appointments for us. So you go into the appointment booking app, which is, you can get to it from our website, kaipo.gov.bb. And once you go on the booking app, you select the service that you want. You are also prompted to indicate the files that you want to search for, the company name, etc. So I am not sure if that person that asked the question didn't indicate it up front, but I do know that that is part of the booking process where you have to actually state what business you're coming to do, how many files you want to search, etc. I wanted to talk a bit about managing expectations. We recognize at Kaipo, or we recognized very early in planning our transformation, that we would have to tackle it in a phased approach. And you would recognize that we would have selected very strategically incorporations and registration of business names. Those types of services are very heavily utilized by our offices, and we believe that that process can be streamlined and made quicker for all who access those services if it is done online. So from the beginning of your business incorporation, all of your company's records are already stored in the system, as opposed to a company who's already incorporated, who are now in the process of trying to get all of their corporate documents online through a digitization project. So that's why an aspect of that has been held back for phase 2, because we have to integrate our old platforms into the new one. That will take some time. And as I said, digitization is ongoing, and it actually started a couple of years ago. So we have a head start, but it's still going to take us a little time to get everything on our portal. We have been engaging with our external stakeholders. We have tried, especially now in this COVID age, we've had to really use our website as a point of contact, and email service as well. So we have been engaging quite frequently, or more often than not, using our website to get the messages out or any notices. And we also heavily rely on GIS. So in relation to the ongoing digitization of the project, some of our external stakeholders would have been invited to actually test the system. So this was very important for us, because there are the main users that will be using the portal. So we thought it necessary that we get their input, as well as our staff, who will have to also interact with the system, also probably have to walk through certain processes with persons using it for the first time. So we would have taken all of that feedback, and that would have been implemented into what will be the rollout of the digital system.
Casey, there's a question. There is an anonymous attendee who's asked a question, I believe, related to what you are saying now. But this person is saying that there's no facility to state which companies or documents they're coming to collect. Can I, based on what you shared just now, you were suggesting that there should be some facility on the Kaipo website for you to give that information. So maybe.
Well, collections are different, because
Okay.
you have to wait until the document has actually been processed. So it doesn't make any sense to make an appointment to come and collect a document that you don't know if it has been registered as yet. So what will usually happen is that they might email us or call and to find out if the document has been registered, or one of our officers will call, make contact, and let them know that their particular document is registered and ready for collection, especially if they have been in contact with us trying to find out when it will be registered.
So that facility of putting in information on documents is not only relevant to searches, but it's available for other types of transactions. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, even to use the cashier facility, as I said, we've had to limit the restrictions on the number of persons to the building. So anybody coming into contact with our offices, whether it be to use the cashier, to go into the search room, to file documents, you have to make an appointment.
Okay, we've had a few questions on that, so I think we probably need to look at the portal and see if it is not as obvious for some, because we've had a few questions on that. If I can move on to something that Louisa said just now, and for which we've had quite a few threads of the same sort of question in the chat. Louisa, just now you mentioned that there was a bit of a disconnect in your registrations. I think there was a staggering over 29,000 entities that are registered at KIPO, but for which you have no information at the Barbados Revenue Authority. And I could understand that from an OECD and EU perspective, they may immediately think that all 29,000 of those entities are being used for nefarious reasons and want some sort of reconciliation. And I also appreciate that earlier this year, we had an attempt through the survey that the Corporate Affairs and Intellectual Property Office conducted to remedy that situation. And I think we'll have a fuller chat around that at our regulatory update session on Thursday. So let me give a plug for the Global Business Conference while I'm at it. There is a track on Thursday afternoon about 1:30 for a regulatory update. So the anonymous attendee who asked queries about the attorney and the being used to incorporate business and the company seal, if I may, those questions I'm going to reserve for the regulatory update on Thursday, and we'll talk about the online possibilities now. That being said, Louisa, Lynette wants to know the reason for requiring the filing of tax returns when a company has not carried on any business and therefore there's no taxable income. Her question is this not over-regulation? And she continues, there's no objection to registering. The objection is to filing a tax return where there's no income. What is the purpose of this? And that there's a danger, she concludes by suggesting that there is a danger of implementing burdensome obligations simply because they can be done online. Can I leave those three questions with you because they're all together? And I think also tugs at the discussion, just to tease out the discussion a bit more about the 29,000 plus companies that aren't registered, please.
I think the Senator asked an excellent question. And we raised those among our own teams as to process and what we should do to remedy. And you're correct that the OECD did raise the matter with the international business team, and that we have been, from a collaborative standpoint, assisting the IBU with some of the auditing that is required to be done in order to be successful when we're reviewed, when the OECD carries out their what we call a peer review. But from a Barbados standpoint, right? OECD, EU aside, from a Barbados standpoint, we cannot have a country where we have 70, 80,000 companies registered to carry on business, because that's why you set up your company in the first place. Whether you forget that it exists 2 or 3 years down the line when it doesn't make money or you disband the whole initiative, the company still exists and you still have an obligation to maintain that entity. I think the corporate registry has given the opportunity to strike off entities. And this part of the process that we are conducting will probably assist with that as well on the tail end. 26,000 500, and my team will always correct my number. 26,500 letters were issued in the last week or two of that 29,000. So you're not alone in having received one of these letters. I have people very close to my heart who have also received them.
Those letters were issued in hard copy, not electronically.
Unfortunately, because we didn't have email addresses. Unfortunately. What it allows the taxpayer to do is come forward and clean up your affairs with the authority from a tax perspective. In order to receive a tax clearance, in order to dissolve a company, you need to register. Our systems will not give you a tax clearance. So if you receive one and you haven't registered a company, it is fraudulent, right? Our system will not issue a tax clearance until you are first registered. We want to make sure we have an adequate enough record within our system of that entity having existed. We have given the opportunity also, if you incorporated in 1997, we've given the opportunity to only carry out that filing, the tax filing of what you say is a nil return, the tax filing of that return from 2017 going forward. So we were only picking up that registration effectively in the TAMIS system from TAMIS implementation onwards. It will allow us good data recording within TAMIS as we look ahead to our data warehousing where we collect information, right? The data warehouse is somewhat of a dumping ground for information. So it will allow us to know that that company has been in existence, what its record was from a taxing perspective, and what has then happened, whether you have asked for a tax clearance to dissolve that entity or asked for a clearance for some other purpose, maybe to reactivate it now that you realize you can use it as we look to innovate and drive business across Barbados. So we need, in order to issue you a clearance to say, yes, go ahead and dissolve with KIPO, we need to have that entity lodged within our system. So it isn't a matter of just coming forward and saying, sorry, it was granddad's gone, and we just need to get rid of it, get rid of the burden. It's unfortunately not quite as simple as that from a corporate perspective for us. So we will ask that you come forward. We ask that you file an affidavit saying for all those years you didn't carry on business, file for 2017, 8 coming forward, and then you can ask for a tax clearance and dissolve the entity.
Thank you very much, Louisa. If you were not going to say a little bit more on that, one of the questions which Lynette Eastman has raised here has to do with one of the questions that I was going to raise in a little while, and that was as it relates to the how. This is an area of interest for me, and that is legislative reform. I would imagine that the Chief Parliamentary Counsel's office must be flat out reviewing and amending legislation to ensure that the legal landscape allows for smooth sailing to support the technological advances we're discussing. Where are we at with those legislative reforms? And I think Lynette's question specifically is as it relates to what you have just shared as in your intervention just now.
But from the Revenue Authority's standpoint, we are always making recommendations to the Ministry of Finance to amend various pieces of legislation. We have made recommendations as it relates to the cleanup of the Income Tax Act that needs to take place because of the change in the tax rates and the international platform. So there are amendments around that. There are amendments around betting and gaming, which will come forward as well. I mean, a whole plethora of amendments really that we do put forward for the road tax and the licensing stickers. You know, why do you have to get a sticker in the mail? Why is it necessary for you to peel that thing off and stick it on your car? If the police can read a barcode or read your license plate and identify you in some form, you know, isn't it time to move away from this kind of initiative and the burden? Because if I have 60,000 stickers to issue, it is very unlikely that with the staff complement that we have, that we will get to your sticker anytime soon. So So we have to be cognizant, I think, of the requirements that are archaic and to move away from those. And so I do appreciate that comment.
Actually, if I may say that sometimes it makes us out to be the villains, because I have heard and have experienced in the past situations where you go, for example, to renew your driver's license. And I know that someone wrote to me on this, a BIBA member wrote to me on this a little while ago, where they needed their driver's license to renew their application for something significant in another country. And they couldn't actually do that because the department was closed. And I mean, I'm driving around without a sticker on the back of my car because I've turned up several times to the location and there have been out of stickers, and I just decided that I wasn't going to go back again. So it does make us out to be villains where there is not the easier opportunity of embracing technology, like giving you a QR code or something else that you could happily use and transmit. So I would be interested in some of that discussion. And
that is exactly what the Revenue Authority has gone ahead in the interim. We recognize that the Licensing Authority is revamping its systems, and I'm sure big things will come from that in the short term. In the interim, however, we have to respond, and therefore we have established a system where you can go on and you can register your vehicle, and you receive electronically the result of that, so that you have something to carry in your car, as you say, should the police stop you and say, we don't see, your sticker says 2018, where is your proof of insurance and proof of registration? So we have automated that process.
Excellent. See, another initiative that we forget about. That is great to know. But in that era of information and having data, I mean, all we're doing here now is really, every time you go onto something, you're plugging your data in. And I would imagine that the first couple of times we did it, it was hesitation about populating some of the data fields. But now we are gaily putting all of our information in. And as a matter of fact, our Google accounts probably retain a lot of the information, so it can auto-populate those fields for us. And I would imagine that for us in Barbados, because we are actually a small jurisdiction, there is perhaps opportunity behind the scenes for a lot of this data to be kept centrally, even if it's not centrally, but it does mean that we now, and government now has your repositories of literally tons of data. And of course, a couple of the questions that immediately come about, one around cybersecurity. I mean, it's very difficult not to claw too far back to the Panama, the Paradise, and of course, more recently, the Pandora Papers. But of course, we're all acutely aware otherwise that there was heightened and increased incidences of cybersecurity breaches since the beginning of pandemic, as we all had to pivot and adjust our lives to everything being online. How comfortable should we be in populating governments and other people's data warehouses with our personal data? Can anyone speak to some of the efforts that we are, or some of the strides that we are wrapping around to ensure that we have a robust cybersecurity solution for all of the online technologies that we're implementing?
I think we have no choice. I think we have no choice from that perspective. The Revenue Authority, as a repository for a large quantity of information on people, has to be robust in its data security policy. I think from a government perspective, you've seen the introduction of the Data Protection Act, which requires the levels of security that to which you speak. So we now have the legislation in place in large degree. And you do robust testing around that data and penetration, etc., to make sure that it is securely kept. There are conversations, I'm sure, ongoing across government at this point on cloud security as well, because in a disaster recovery situation, we have felt in the last year alone, volcanic eruptions, lightning strikes, you know, tropical storms to a degree that we've not seen before, to the climate initiatives that the Prime Minister keeps speaking on. And therefore, cloud security has come to the fore with all of us. The globe is moving in that form. And we have now to set our policies and put those in place to secure our own people's data and our own people's information. And I'm sure it's the same for everyone on the panel. That is paramount. It's what keeps you up at night, right? At the forefront of our minds always.
Anybody else wants to comment on that? Margaret, you
Connie-
would be another agency that has access to a significant amount of data. And I'm sure that in the first instance, people may have been hesitant, but as I said, we are going ahead and we have every confidence. Do you want to tell us a bit more about the cybersecurity initiatives in your agency?
I'll tell you one thing, for every step that we make, security is a major part of it. So there's nothing that we will design without having a security person right there. I will say MIST, for example, that agency, basically, they walk us through this. So we are in close partnership with them every step of the way. And nothing that we do, we're very cognizant of the sharing of data, the Data Protection Act. We're really glad, as Lisa said, that is here with us now. And we take it seriously, information that is shared with us and the importance of protecting that information. So yes, every step of the way, we kind of ensure that a security person is there to walk us through that. I want to go back to something a question you asked earlier, and it was about managing expectations. And I wanted to look at both the internal and external customer, because so often we look at managing the expectations of the external customer, but we do have internal customers who deliver these services. And we need to manage their expectations. In this environment, the internal customer, they're overwhelmed in terms of the number of changes that we need to make in order to rebrand and regroup as a country. And so I think it is critical that we manage the expectations of the internal customer by giving buy-in. I like the idea that I heard earlier, which is something we do, the phase-by-phase approach, communicating with our internal customer, making them a part of the design and development of the new online platform. That product is important. They're the ones who are going to deliver the service. So it's important that they have buy-in. It's important that they're able to develop this from bottom going up rather than tops down, where you've already done it and you say to them, this is what you have to do. So I think that going forward, to manage without a lot of complaints for the internal customers, to make them a part of it. And one of the major ways of doing this is to say basically to the internal customer, we all want service. In this particular organization, we are giving service, but 90-something% of the time we want service. So give the type of service then that you want. And I think that type of approach really does make a difference. Taking the time out to deal with your customer, to apologize for their perception of what may be happening. And I think that really does go a long way then in going into the internal customer and their expectations. For example, in the immigration department, there are a number of barriers that we've removed. The barriers of police certificate of character. I mean, for those of you who might have applied for anything in immigration, like a work permit, perhaps immigrant status, citizenship, you might have been told some time ago you need to have a police certificate of character for any place that you may have lived since age 16 for 6 months or more. That has been removed in the last year or more. And you submit your application supporting documents, and we find a way which we do have a good backdrop in terms of getting a security clearance on the individual. So that's been a huge success for us in terms of processing applications in a timely manner, albeit that we might not have the technological framework in place as yet. What we're making up is for the art of service delivery, how we deliver that service still. Thanks, Connie.
Excellent point. I am minded that when my children started school, they had what they call values at their school, and one of them is mutual respect, and it takes us all the way back to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And it's the same. Why would I expect to wait all day in a process? And why can't we quicken it? So it is the mutual respect on either side, and that really goes back to our core values. And I think we all hold similar core values, but it's good to be reminded of those core values. Louisa, there are some questions in the chat that I'm going to pitch at you in a minute, but I have a part B of my question just now. After the information, the question about the cybersecurity, one of the things that's always been a bugbear to us in the sector is not having empirical stats. So now that we have a whole bunch of data, are we giving thought to how we are mining it and how we can make that or extract enough information from that data to help inform how we do business in Barbados, where we can get business from, where our next steps are likely to be? It would be great to understand if we are actually able to, or if we are consciously building on some opportunity to be able to mine that data that we now have.
I think it speaks to transparency and public trust in the information as well. Transparency from the point of view that the public has a right to information also. We at the authority started off with quarterly meetings with the Chamber of Commerce, with the BIBA, with the Institute of Chartered Accountants, to start to create that data information sharing, not necessarily data sharing, but information sharing platform. I do with them presentations on where Barbados is in terms of its tax revenue, because that's my forte. Other departments come along and cover theirs. And that should really morph, and that's where we're going as our endpoint into either quarterly, monthly, depending on how we can manage it, report that is posted on the website. And once you have that, then you have a transparency of activity. You'll be able to see those sectors that are paying more VAT than others, and you'll be able to see which ones therefore are doing better than others. And you can deduce from that. Other departments, perhaps the Ministry of Finance itself, or statistics, will come forward and say automotives are doing well, but you will be able to garner a lot of that information once you have the transparency and reporting on a regular basis. So I think that is where the authority is headed.
Excellent. What about your department, Robert? I mean, we often say that our business comes from a specific handful of locations, but I'm assuming now that we have a lot more digital information being logged, that we're able to actually say with certainty and in very quick times where we're getting the business and the verticals about what kind of business. Are we able to mine a lot of that information? Same question to you, Kester.
Well, that is one of the things that we expect to come out of the licensing system that we are expanding on. So we certainly, put some. We're just going to make sure that in terms of the data that we capture, because right now it is not electronically captured in that way, and so the system that we have now would more or less take us to that place, and so. So as I said, we're really looking forward. We have the IT team there that is doing good work. They have been putting things in place, and certainly with the with the consulting team that is building out this, that will be building out the system, we will get there.
So Cody, so the two dimensions to the data, and for many years we have collected certain types of data, and I think in a large measure, on request, we would share that with primarily the persons in BIBA as the area of interest is sort of concentrated. If I take the wider FSC's remit, we would generally publish consolidated information on our website as to the developments, size, areas of growth, areas of interest across the wider sectors. One of the things we have promised BIBA is to be able to provide them with a certain breakdown and classification of the data of interest. So right now, we will be able to tell you like how many entities, what class of business, or probably what they're doing, countries of origin. That may be of use to all the stakeholders. And so, yes, what our e-filing system will be able to do is help us, give us capacity to do further mining of that data, and then we can go into various strands and take deeper dives into various aspects of the data. But there's a big but. To effectively do this, we need all our stakeholders to make sure they file on time, and file accurately. Our system will be able to help us diagnose those accurate filings in a more timely manner. But until such, many times we still have to be asking and reminding persons of their obligations, their statutory obligations in terms of submitting certain types of data. Yeah.
I think,
Sure.
Connie, as well, what you're speaking to is data warehousing. And certainly our thanks from the authority to the IMF and the CARTAC, the tax assistance team. They have been working with us for the last week and a half, and will continue until the end of the month, on our data warehousing initiative, what that should look like, what kind of data should we collect, which agencies should we be collecting from, in order to give you a holistic view of the taxpayer, yes, but it goes even further than that to how is Barbados doing? What industries are doing well? Which ones need more support? And that kind of feedback only comes if the data has come from a vast number of different sources, and then you can apply the business intelligence and the data analytics to it. So we have been undergoing that exercise, certainly, and it will be transformative, I think. And it will allow stakeholders in the private sector to also look in and be able to tell, you know, where we should be headed in a much easier fashion at the end of the day.
Perhaps we could give them an example of some type of collaboration so that they can see how it works.
Collaboration? Connie, will you allow?
Sure. If it's going to be of interest to our audience, of course.
When the Revenue Authority speaks to collaboration on any particular day, we have a memorandum of understanding in place with Customs. So we collaborate with the Customs Department in order to understand importation and collect information on importation. Any given day, pillar 1, pillar 2, collaboration with the private sector task force, and to allow us to understand what business is feeling, to allow the private sector an opportunity to give recommendations on the way forward. The international business unit, we have been collaborating with. On the audit side, we look at when we ask you to conduct an audit on you, it's not only for us. The IBU also has benchmarks to meet from its peer review perspective, and we look at financial statements in order to determine whether a filer with the IBU and with the authority has given us adequate enough data so that we can garner what kind of operation the entity is carrying on. The central bank and the Ministry of Finance every day on policy every day on reporting on how Barbados is faring. On the international side, the Canada Revenue Agency certainly has been giving us a significant level of support, and we've been collaborating with them on lots of training for staff internally. And we've established our own BRA Academy, which will allow our own internal staff to collaborate with us on training initiatives that will support, and Customs is coming along with us on this one, to support customer service development, leadership development, to make sure that the next crop of leaders can manage Barbados efficiently as well. And with the FSC, we collaborate with the FSC as well on data that will help the international sector. So we've been mining some of that as well. So it's a busy day on the collaborative front. All this while, of course, being mindful that we protect your data and we don't share that information.
It sounds as though you have a very busy dashboard to look at and to navigate through with the collaboration. That's excellent information though, Louisa and Kester, thank you for that. The BRA Academy sounds very interesting, and I know that we at BIBA have been for many years willing or wanting to partner with the BRA and other agencies. We've often found that because of turnover, that the spirit of what should obtain is lost sometimes in translation. So it's important from a continuity perspective to be able to share some experiences as to why we're doing these things, why Barbados is special, why are we doing requesting these things, and whether we can find a better way of doing it with collaboration. So anything that we can do to work with you and to collaborate and partner with you on that academy, I think we would like to hold hands with you in that regard.
Certainly, and the University of the West Indies is partnering to deliver the program. So I'm sure they'll pull in all of you guys from the private sector, and we will see you soon.
Excellent, because as I said just now, digital transformation is as the minister with responsibility for MIST. It's the Ministry of Innovation, Science and Smart Technology. And I should say at this point that we actually did try to have a representative from MIST join us this evening, but I understand that there were conflicts with the schedules. Notwithstanding that, we've often heard Senator Kay McConney, the minister with responsibility for MIST, speak about the whole of government approach. And I think actually the whole of government really means going back to the Team Barbados effort. It has got to be collaborative. We've got to be able to pull everyone along and explain why we're doing what we're doing, so that we have a bigger buy-in and for there to be greater transparency and to be able to tick all the governance boxes that we ought to be able to tick. That actually brings me on to another area that I wanted to ask about. And often in digital transformation, there's an immediate concern around people. Am I going to lose my job to a robot? In my organization at Tricor, in our head office in Hong Kong, our digital transformation team has developed and launched, I think, over 200 bots, all aimed at creating efficiencies, and particularly more with the sort of rote style processes that we employ in corporate and business services. But we've not lost people. To the contrary, we've taken on people. So perhaps you can tell us more about the people side of this transformation. Are we seeing downsizing, or has this really given us an opportunity to retrain and upskill our people?
Connie, I would say for us, it's really an opportunity to retool our people, because we are living in different times and we had to pivot quickly and adjust and continue to adjust. And so the skill sets that are required are new skill sets in terms of moving forward, online processing, online processes. And we'll find that a lot of, let's say, some of the elder persons, when I say elder, let me put myself in there, who are not necessarily technologically savvy, For them, it's about a retooling and a retraining. It's for them, making them feel at home, making the computer now your friend, instead of writing things, handwritten things, now using technology to deliver services. So it's not at all a reduction in staff. I would say it is contrary, because you need a new mindset, new skills, and sometimes these skills you don't have in the workplace. So outside of retooling your people, you now have to bring in persons. And one of the things that I think about ahead is change management. And that's certainly critical in the 21st century in terms of the direction, the trajectory that we are going in. Change management is critical. In the past, you had a lot of resistance, and so it took long to accomplish things. And this is a season where we need to do it and do it quickly. And if we're going to do it quickly, we need to have the right people in place to help persons to shift their mindsets rather than be miserable and quarrel about something. Give them the tools, help them to understand what's really required in this season. So to me, it's not at all a reduction in employment, but it's more about retooling in this season. And that's how it has been for us.
Thank you. Robert, I see that you came on to mic, so I am assuming you wanted to make an intervention on either on the people or the change management aspect.
Well, people matter, eh? And regardless of whatever you're doing, you have to pay attention to the fact that you have everyone will move at the same way, and you know, a sensitivity to people will make a whole lot of difference. And again, I talked about appreciating that they are, you know, I would have gone through situations where you can have leaders that who might not be savvy, but they appreciate what the technology can do, and so that sometimes they find themselves as ones that are willing to sit and listen to the persons who know better, and I find that has been something that helps. And I like to think about how the way that leaders would approach things would, you know, because a person might not be that savvy doesn't mean that they can't, you can't help them along. You see, and the thing is that yes, we want to have things quickly, but we even in this time with COVID, we have to be mindful of I hear about the mental health issues and all such like. But even from our side, from the international business unit, I know that part of what I've seen is that there are persons that are willing to engage the technology and even come up with solutions and present them to us, to leaders, in terms of how they can do whatever. So there's a sort of acceptance that causes them to be able to feel free that they can do the exploring. And yes, the change management, we would have seen that. I remember talking to my colleague, one of the IT persons, and he was making the point of something that we had learned when we had dealt with the economic substance, even in terms of inviting persons to be part of dealing with the system, that it was recognized that the leaders of the organizations, some persons in leadership positions might have been exposed, but then they found that they were not the ones that dealing with the, you know, inputting the information and all such like, and then you had to go back and deal with that. And so, you know, so those are the people side of things are things that we have to bear in mind, you know, because it could, you know, help people over the resistance where there is.
Thank you for that. Director Glenna Smith is asking whether anyone else on the panel can speak to what their agencies are doing to aid in the upskilling of people. Anyone else wants to make a comment in that regard? And how are we upskilling the teams to meet the needs of today. And I guess she also means the needs of tomorrow, being agile and flexible in that discussion as well.
So if I could just jump in here, I mean, our remit on consumer protection and financial stability or systemic risk as the regulator on financial issues. You can, I mean, technology is a tool in helping you to become more efficient and to deliver certain types of services. Particularly, we can spend a lot of time just compiling data, for instance. We can have a technological solution that can provide that compilation in quick time, and then our analysts spend more time looking at redress for areas of deficiencies and engagement with stakeholders. As you know, there are many demands, many requests, many applications coming for various things. So as you onboard technology, the risks themselves change. So you need to have relevant staff to be able to address the new and emerging risks that would be associated with the development of the financial system, whatever that might be, for instance. And you utilizing your resources to do probably higher level work. And so I can think, Courtney, of an explicit example where persons were concerned, as you rightly said, the utilization of technology might make them unattractive. And the notion of sitting with persons and showing them how alternative opportunities may arise, even how to query the system, even how I mean, there's a whole a lot of areas or specialized areas, even in how you're storing data and how the data is retrieved and how it's captured, that will require a new set of skill sets. And so certainly with the developers that we used, we have had those relevant persons who were most concerned and most affected. The developers walk through with them where there are new and emerging areas and where attentions need to be placed given the specific system that we've been using. And so persons can now see new roles for them in ensuring that the organization as a whole delivers and meets all its mandates. So while it might not be that specific task that they were accustomed to, because of the technology, they're now able to harness the information, the data, query certain aspects of the data, and be able to deliver information that can help us to focus on new and emerging risks associated with the technology. And so that's just a simple example.
Thank you very much, Kester. I'm mindful that we have 12 minutes before the witching hour arrives, and I don't want the opportunity to respond to a couple more of the questions that are in the question and answer section of the portal. Louisa, unfortunately, I think these questions are more for you, and I think that they're intertwined questions. One of the questions is at this time is, will there be a $500 late penalty filing fee for those companies that have been inactive for decades by registering now with BRA? And relatedly, what I'm seeing is dissolved entities which would have left the island are being sent letters for audit purposes. When an entity is dissolved, the tax provider informs BRA of its dissolution. So to audit an entity which would have been issued a tax clearance for dissolution purposes does not make sense to investors. Related more to the first question, again to you, Louisa. During the pandemic, several small businesses may have popped up to weather the storm of uncertainty during the beginning of the pandemic. Some may have registered with KYPO in hopes of generating income. However, beyond registration, no further business was conducted due to persons returning to regular work arrangements. How would BRA handle such cases? I think that's both a CAIPO and a BRA question wrapped up in that one. So, and I guess the earlier question from the anonymous attendee, will this occur any penalties and interests? I'm assuming that this is related to one of the earlier questions. So can I leave those questions with you, Louisa, and Casey as well, please?
Certainly. I think I'm going from the bottom up. Will there be a $500 late filing fee? That is a policy decision. That is not a decision that I make. I don't waive penalties and I don't waive interest. If you send me such a query, I will approach the Ministry of Finance for determination on that matter. We certainly will be in dialogue with the ministry on the initiative, recognizing the scope, and I expect a decent result, but we need to have that dialogue with them first. So we will certainly update you quite soon on the application of penalties and interest in this particular matter. But you know, Barbadians are diligent people, and it's not okay to say, I forgot, or you know what, it really didn't matter anymore, so I just put it by the wayside. That's not how we treat to our affairs, certainly. I think use it as a time to clean up, use it as a time to clear the slate, because if it's a nil return, that's much easier than one with a lot of complexity. Most of you have been through the system, and you see how simple it is to file that nil return. And therefore, let's do the right thing in this instance. But we certainly will have the dialogue on the penalties and interest. Someone has not received their driver's license for 2021. I do know that I think there was a lot of press around it in the last couple of days on the driver's licenses being brought up to date using an alphabet system. So I expect that will come pretty soon. Dissolved entities, I'm not quite clear on, but I do know that where you are looking to dissolve, you may be selected for an audit. It may be what we call a desktop audit, where it is quite a brief exercise, and so that we make sure that you've met the obligations and can be issued with a tax clearance certificate. So that does happen. Unfortunately, the audit team may not have gotten to you in years prior.
This person is suggesting that the entity has already dissolved and they have already received tax clearance for dissolution purposes.
Well, then that's not a matter for us if they've gotten a tax clearance. So certainly if you've been in that 26,000 that we keep speaking on, certainly that means you're still recorded in one or two of the systems. So you need to really make sure, I think, in that respect, that you've gone through the process correctly. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And I think you've already answered the question about the small businesses that would have popped up during the time of the pandemic. I think we can say that we've answered that question. I think that
I think what's important, Connie, is this is not witch hunting. This is cleaning up. I think don't take it as somebody coming after you in particular. With that kind of quantum, it's not really about you, it's about the collective and making sure that we tidy up our affairs.
I guess that's actually an important part of the communication, because it is usual for when individuals receive notices or directions or correspondence from regulators such as yourself, it is not come along and collect a bag of goodies. They normally expect something not so wonderful at the end of that lead. So I think it is a good opportunity to communicate that we are cleaning up. We are making a huge effort to right size our boat. And if you receive a letter and you know that the contents are completely out of skew, then the obligation is on you to write and right size the regulators' information. And of course, you would have evidence to support whatever position you are putting forward. So I think that's important. But it's important to convey that, again, the partnership and the collaboration that we have with the regulators, that we are not being heavy-handed or high-handed. We really do want this information to be cleaned up.
And in this instance where we then collect information if people have died, if companies are really inactive, then we can feed that back to the corporate registry to allow them to strike off their register and clean up from their end as well. So it is a sort of a three-way collaboration, I think.
To anonymous attendee, I think, yes, you would need to resend a certificate of dissolution, and you can take that up with the appropriate contact at the BRA to finish that. There's one last question from Donna Every that was posted earlier, and it is in connection with the penalties are automatically applied in TAMIS. She wants to know why are the reversals not made as automatically as the penalties are.
That's correct, and I think there's systems flaws that we've had to deal with and work through, and so we have done that, and we're working to clean up the system in that regard as far as possible, and we hope to have that done probably in the Q3. So this, by the end of December, we hope to have that initiative sort of closed.
Okay. I know we have 4 minutes to go, and I'm mindful that I do need to hand over in a minute. What I wanted to ask at this stage, was there any burning issue that any of my esteemed members of the panel want to convey that we have not already been able to convey in the last couple of minutes? Casey, why don't we start with you? Is there anything that you wanted to communicate at this time? Of course, I would imagine that everyone is anxious to hear the regulatory update in which you'll be participating in later on in the week. But if there's anything that you want to say before then, feel free.
I just mentioned for those who won't be able to participate in that session, that there was a recent amendment made via the Corporate Miscellaneous Provisions Act of 2021 that was passed in August. So you can have a look at that. It should be available on Parliament's website. Separate and apart from that, in relation to our transformation of the corporate registry, again, the process of going digital is really to facilitate us doing business easily and more efficiently. As I would have mentioned before, and I just wanted to reiterate because that was a concern brought up, our internal staff, our external stakeholders, we have made sure to include them in the development of this system. We know the common errors that come up, so we've tried to really make the process of filing as easy and simple as possible. So certain things will be automatic. So persons will often forget to include Barbados at the end of an address. That will be automatic. So the system is designed to cut out a lot of those errors that persons make that cause delays to the filing of your documents. The staff, as I would have mentioned, we have been working assiduously for several months trying to get them up to speed with even the simple computer awareness training programs, as well as training in the new system. And we've already had we already have a portal. So most officers, especially on the corporate registry side, then they're aware of this space, filing digitally. So we're very hopeful that in the next couple of months will bring about this radical change that we need. So I'm excited.
Anyone else has any final sharings that they would like to do at this time?
I'd like to sum up. Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to sum up quickly by saying that Bob Marley said redemption time. This is redemption time for us. This is the time where Strong partnerships build a strong brand Barbados, and it's about the collaboration of efforts and time. And Glenda asked a question earlier, and I want to put it this way in terms of upscaling. We need to build a new culture of learning where persons participate in terms of technological learning, though, the new skill sets, do a needs assessment, look at smart and timely ways that we could achieve the things that we want. For example, the Barbados Immigration Department, we're in partnership with the Postal Service. You come in, submit your application for Barbados passport, and the passport can be delivered to you. There's no need for you to come back to the department. So I just want to sum up by saying strong partnerships will build a strong Barbados, and this for us is a redemption time to do it together, collectively.
Excellent.
I think the chief has said it perfectly. I endorse all of those comments. I think it is a difficult time for Barbadians, and we recognize that at the Revenue Authority. We are probably the first point to see the pain that you feel when we still smile, but we know that things aren't as rosy as it all seems. And therefore, reach out where you need assistance, reach out where you need assistance with tidying up your affairs, and assistance on the tax payable side as well. And we will collaborate.
I'll just all our stakeholders, please utilize our system. One of the things we have done is allow the developer. We have allowed the developer to conduct personal training and develop engagement with all the stakeholders when they're having difficulties, if they're having any. So just to make our job more efficient and to make our service delivery to you superb, please utilize our systems, and we remain open to respond to any of your queries that you may have. Thank you.
Robert?
Okay, we at the ministry, we are here to serve.
Short and succinct and to the point. I'm going to hand back over to Carmel, but before I do, I'll just make one comment. Lynette has made one about in the question and answer about being competitive, and we have talked often about regulation being right sized and appropriate, and I think that we are all taking that on board while we are building out our digital platform. So again, I think that would be the idea, to collaborate beforehand rather than to bellyache afterwards would be useful. No suggestion, I think, would go amiss in the all hands on board team Barbados, or to coach, to use Margaret's phrase, the working together, stronger together scenario. So team, thank you for working with us this evening, and thank you for your participation. And I hand over to Carmel.
Thank you so much, Connie. And I would like to thank you on behalf of all of our audience this evening for so ably moderating this panel discussion. It was very interesting. I've been noting the comments, and really, I think we engaged with a lot of key issues that were on our audience mind. And so now what's left for me to do is to invite our first Vice President and Chair of the Global Business Week Steering Committee, Mr. Jamar Arthur Salmon, to deliver the vote of thanks. Jamar, are you available?
Yes, thank you very much, Carmel. And, really and truly, we want to start by thanking everyone for joining us tonight for the public discussion forum, which tackled a very important area of our present and future lives as Barbadians, and also key for business facilitation going forward and growing Barbados as a global business hub. We learned a lot more about the operations of our regulators, where they currently are involved in their operations, and what the future holds with respect to interacting with them, with a focus on easy paperless transactions and further investment in technology. I think that you would join me in noting that the future is very bright if we continue to execute in these areas and brand Barbados will indeed be very strong. Therefore, thank you to our specially invited guests and the following speakers who shared great insights with us. Connie Smith, our moderator, Managing Director of Tricor, Lewis Ward, Revenue Commissioner of the Barbados Revenue Authority, Margaret Innes, Deputy Chief Immigration Officer at the Immigration Department, Kester Guy, CEO of the Financial Services Commission, Casey Boyce, Deputy Registrar of CAIPO, and Robert Folks, Acting Director of the International Business Unit. Now let me give humble thanks to our event sponsor, Gregory McConney, President and Chief Executive Officer of Brookfield. Brookfield has been a repeat sponsor of Global Business Week, and specifically this forum, and we cannot stress enough how grateful we are for Brookfield's support each year. And Greg has supported BIBA as a director and in other capacities for years, and his ongoing support is really deeply appreciated. So thank you again, Greg, and thank you, Brookfield. Secondly, please note that this event is conceptualized by the BIBA Business Development Committee, a new committee branded this year, and the General Global Business Week Steering Committee, to whom I offer sincere thanks. Additionally, with special thanks to Grace Chambers and Ricardo Knight, who led the efforts for this event. And we cannot ever forget all of the others involved behind the scenes in making everything work and run effectively and efficiently. Thanks must go to our president, Mr. Derek Cummings, and Executive Director Caramel Haynes, and the Secretariat, Kira, Cecilia, and Lisa, and to Andrew Cadogan offering technical support this evening. Lastly, I close out with our main events, with our main sponsors for Global Business Week, our diamond sponsors, Invest Barbados and RBC Capital Markets, our platinum sponsors, SECO SRL and Sagicor. Again, I cannot stress enough how thankful we are that you took the time out this evening, leading all the way up to curfew, or what our Connie called the witching hour, to really engage with us. And thanks again to the panelists for sharing their time. We know you're all very busy in your organizations. And thank you for taking the time this evening, and we look forward to continuing to partner with you in the future. So with that being said, I hope everyone remains safe, and thanks again for coming out and for patronizing BIBA in all of our efforts. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and be well.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, and likewise.
Yes, good night, everyone. And have a wonderful week.
Good night and goodbye.